Right. Okay.
You want us to move on there?
Oh no, it's fine.
You can influence that.
Yeah, sometimes you get like a crick in your neck, right?
Yeah.
Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitanjana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So today is a very joyful day, Bhaktivinod Thakur's Divine Appearance Day. And yesterday was the Divine Appearance of Jiva Goswami. We are coming to the end of this month of Sri Hari Smadan. What happened to your cushion?
Nice, thank you.
Okay, your cushion. Yes. Okay. And we're very honored we have Krishna Kantadidi visiting us from Italy. Right. I was there one time when Krishna Kanta arrived to Navadvip and Gurudev was so happy. And I remember he looked at me and he said, Krishna Kanta arrived. He was so happy. So she was someone very important to our Gurudev and very close to his heart. So this is the kind of association that we want to have actually. To have a place in the heart of an exalted Vaishnava like our Guru, that is not a small thing. So those persons who have such connection, we are blessed to have their association and their well wishes upon us. So we hope this will not be the first time.
No, first of a long. You will have Italian devotees coming.
Yeah, we can have a nice channel.
Yes.
We can send Tushar Prabhu. It can be the night train, the night shuttle. Take devotees back and forth. So Bhaktivinod Thakur, and yesterday Jiva Goswami, we didn't say so much. Very important days for us. I've been thinking lately, how there's so much general conception of spirituality in the world, so much. But what our gurus are giving is the most refined. It is a very exclusive and fine line. We're actually entering into an intimate conception of the nature of reality, the highest reality. It is not a vague or a general thing, but in a specific and detailed way, what is the nature of the Lord and his associates? Just like in this mundane world, right? We all have particular family lives and relationships, and there are so many nuances and details, right? We're all very acquainted with these things. So also there are such nuances, such fine points within that upper world. And that is the eternal world. That is the permanent world. Here we're all dealing with temporality, relativity, right? So what is the nature of this refined conception of divinity? That our gurus like Bhaktivinod Thakur, Jiva Goswami, they're showing us that in a very specific way. So as we progress in our understanding and our development, we will come to more and more refined conceptions of the nature of that higher plane. And so Jiva, Bhaktivinod Thakur, Rup, Sanatan, our immediate, more closer Guru Varga, they are showing us that, And actually one interesting point that Gurudev made once about Bhaktivinod Thakur is that he see, this is their nature, right? They're very merciful, that although they are cultivating this finest thing, they're also trying to accommodate the kindergarten students, right? They're trying to give everyone a chance. This is their mercy. This is their mercy upon us. Vairagya, Raghunath Goswami's prayer to Sanatan, Vairagya yu bhakti the samprayatne arpayan mam manavipsamandan vipambudir yapada dukkha dukhi sanatanastam prabhum ashrayami, saying that I didn't have any desire to taste this divine substance. I was very happy living in ignorance. And Gurudev, he quoted this verse at the disappearance festival of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, 10 days after Srila Sridhar Maharaj left the world, and saying that, I was very comfortable in a life of ignorance, in his humility, of course, saying this. But my guru, Kripambu dear, Yapara Dukkha Dukhi, the nature of the great souls is their only suffering is the suffering of others. And they are Kripambu dear, they are oceans of mercy. So what did they do? They saw my condition, and they could not tolerate that. So they made me. They made me taste this nectar. They forced me to drink. They caused me to drink this nectar. I was unwilling, but they caused me to drink this. So this is their mercy, that they are cultivating a very fine and high thing, right? Why should they be interested to come and explain the ABCs, to people like us, They have many more interesting and better things to do. But out of their mercy, they're doing this. So Gurudev, this was one point that I appreciated very much that he made about Bhaktivinod Thakur. And he was saying that Bhaktivinod Thakur, his inner bhajan was very exclusive, very fine. No, actually, Bhaktivinod Thakur, his Ishta Devata was Gaur Gadadhar, right? Worship, and that is a conception that we keep some distance from. It's a very, very fine. We're speaking of fine conceptions. This is extremely fine and difficult to understand. The worship of Gaur Gadadhar. It is a very particular conception. When Gurudev was contemplating what worship to have at the Govinda Kund temple in Navadip, then somebody suggested, "Oh, what about Gaur Gadadhar?" And Gurudev said, "That is the private chamber of bhajan of Bhaktivinod Thakur." We are not qualified for that. That was Gurudev's response. So it is a very fine conception, the worship of Gaur Gadadhar. But that was Bhaktivinod Thakur's beloved deity. He worshipped those deities in Godrumadweep. And he also wrote in some of his compositions, glorification of them. So his inner worship, his inner bhajan was the most fine of the fine. But Gurudev said, however, his preaching was very broad, very broad. He was accommodating everyone. And Gurudev also pointed out how Bhaktivinod Thakur, he had this, this was one of his special abilities and his mercy, his gift, that he preached in a very diverse way, in different formats and in different styles. That he could preach to a British man, and we've seen some of these poems, right? Sridhar Shabha Prabhu used to like those very much. He wrote these. When you read those poems, you would never guess they're written by a Bengali man in Bengal. You would never guess, They're like Victorian style Christian English, So he could write like for an educated Western man. And Gurudev mentioned some of his books like Chaitanya Shikshamrita were for the modern Western mind. And then he said, then by contrast, Jaiva Dharma was more for the Vedic minded person, more Indian minded person, Jaiva Dharma. And then he also wrote, and he said, for the simple village people like us, Gurudev said, his songs, all these songs that we sing. We were mentioning this the other day, right? And I don't remember who was here, but how there's this tradition, right? In pretty much all cultures, there's this tradition of coming together in song, like the villagers coming together in song. And so also in India and Bengal, so it's a like this, it's a very like powerful and organic way to connect with people. They're coming together and singing, sharing their hearts. So it's a very natural way to connect and to keep the message alive, right? So all these extraordinary songs that he's given us. And Gurudev mentioned also that everything is in those songs. Everything is there. He said, if we lose, especially the Sharanagati songbook, right? He said, even if we lose, he said, if we lose everything, we lost what we had. Sharanagati, Bhaktivinod Thakur songs, we have everything there. Because as Gurudev said, if we're going to cross a river, we don't need to know all the details and what is the chemistry and the physics and the temperature and the direction of the current, the air, and all these things, but we need to know how to swim, right? And so he said, Bhaktivinod Thakur, he's giving that to us. How then Sharanagati, how can we cross? How can we reach the other side? And those songs, they're, it's really quite funny sometimes because some of these songs, we sing them in these sweet tunes, but if you go to look at the message, like especially that Sharira Vidya Jal, right? We sing it Prashadam. Like we sing it in a very sweet tune, but if you go to look at that translation, it's very heavy. So it's like very digestible. It's very the message is there. And also, as Srila Sridhar Maharaj is showing in his edition, right, of Sharanagati, Srila Sridhar Maharaj wrote this commentary, Laghu Chandrika Bhashya. Then Srila Sridhar Maharaj is drawing out like all the scriptural references that are behind, So it's like, like if you have some multivitamin, right, that you just pop it in your mouth and it goes down very easy. There's so many things inside there, so many things inside. So in the Sharanagati, it's on apparently it's many of these songs are very simple, sweet, but there's so many scriptural references behind. There's very deep Siddhanta behind, and so Srila Sridhar Maharaj is drawing that out in his Laghu Chandrika Bhashya and showing, here Bhaktivinod is referring to this, and here he's referring to that. So, and really, we are. I remember Goswami Maharaj saying once, like Bhaktivinod Thakur is God as far as we're concerned. Like he's given us everything. From the lowest to the highest thing, he's given us everything. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj in one of his verses, it's one of the introductory verses to the Laghu Chandrika Bhashya for Sharanagati. There's this verse, famous verse, Guru Dham, Grantha Dham, Gaur Dham Adam, Bhakti Dham, Buri Dham, Vande Bhaktivinod Kam Sada. Saying, like, listing what are all the gifts of Bhaktivinod Thakur. And first and foremost, Guru Dham, he gave us our guru, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who established how we will practice Krishna consciousness in this modern age. Because Bhaktivinod Thakur, he was working within the infrastructure of the established society, right? And he was so well positioned, he was a highly respected person. Imagine a Bengali gentleman working for the British government. And we hear he was very much appreciated by the British government also. When he tried to retire at one time, they requested him to stay. They very much appreciated him. So that was, it was very high status, to have that position. So the point is he was very well situated to speak to educated people and to give some good name, right? Because we hear that Mahaprabhu's conception, the dignity of Mahaprabhu's sampradaya had become obscured, and there was so much misrepresentation Apasiddhanta. Gurudev would always mention this one gentleman who identified 13 different Apasampradayas, 13 different groups who were using the name of Mahaprabhu, but actually completely misrepresenting his real message, his real teachings. So this, it was like a jungle, and the general people the good people of society, the pious people, they had a bad impression of Mahaprabhu's line. There was this idea, because Mahaprabhu rejected the caste system, right? So then many had this idea, like if you can't get a job, then you join Mahaprabhu's group. And, if you're like just a bum, it's like, because it's like a, free love, type of thing, anything goes, it's all about love and peace, man. Srila Maharaj mentioned that his own father had that conception. He was very anti Mahaprabhu's group. So many people had these kinds of. This was a very pervasive idea in the society. So then Bhaktivinod Thakur, and it was also his Leela, right? There's also some parallel, you could say, with Mahaprabhu, because Mahaprabhu in the beginning, he wasn't as a part of his Leela, he wasn't so excited about Krishna consciousness, right? He was a great scholar, right? He used to tease the devotees, right? He was a very highly respected scholar, Mahaprabhu, in his earlier years. But then he showed that transition, how this great scholar who defeated the Digvijay Pandit, Keshava Kashmiri, and all these things, as a young boy, how he became, a so-called sentimental Hare Krishna, and then you have to pay attention. Like, he's this highly respected scholar, Brahmin, and he's chanting and dancing in the street, talking about this prema bhakti. Then you have to pay attention, right? It's not like he's a bum off the street, So also Bhaktivinod Thakur showed a similar leela in that way, that he was mixing like with the elites of society. He was very good friends with the brother of Rabindranath Tagore. You've heard of, Rabindranath Tagore. He was a Nobel laureate, Bengali writer, poet. But he was like a contemporary of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and his brother Dwijendranath was very, very good friends with Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So like this is the type of society that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was moving in, and also this Brahmo group. It was some type of, maybe Krishna Kansi, you can say more, some type of mix of like Christianity and Mayavad, this kind of group, and very like educated intellectual people. He was mixing with like this kind of society. So then he came to read some of the literature of Mahaprabhu, and so then I forgot to put this on. So he showed, this transition. So then people have to pay attention. People have to pay attention. And he also, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he had some questions in the beginning. He'd say, okay, anyone can appreciate Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was a very strict sannyasi. Mahaprabhu wouldn't hear the name of a woman. Very strict sannyasi. Highly educated, scholarly, as we said, and showed so many symptoms of divine love, and spread, Nam Sankirtan on such a wide scale throughout India. Then it is easy to respect who is Mahaprabhu, right? But Krishna, on the other hand, that's more difficult. Krishna, he has many, many girlfriends. He's a teenage boy. It's a little more difficult to swallow that. And you're saying that he's the supreme Godhead. Okay, maybe an avatar of Vishnu. Okay, Vishnu wants to experience something different, maybe. But to say that he's the original Swayam Bhagavan is difficult to accept. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur also, as part of his Leela, he showed that type of mood, that he questioned at one time. Before he fully took it up, he was questioning, like why is it that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Okay, I appreciate Mahaprabhu, Lord Chaitanya Dev, but I cannot understand, why his chosen deity is Krishna. It doesn't make sense to me. And then he expressed, he came to this understanding that actually Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, coming to show what is the actual dignity and purity of that high Leela. It is not to be compared with anything of this world. So then Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he came to take this up, and then he was like Vyasadeva. Gurudev also compared him to Vyasadeva. And I don't remember if it was in a poem of Gurudev's or Srila Sridhar Maharaj, but they made this comparison of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Vyasadeva and Shukadev and Saraswati Thakur, Shukadev Goswami, because they both like kind of had amassed this great wealth, like conceptual wealth, scriptural wealth. Veda Vyas, he compiled all the Vedas, and then he came to give Srimad Bhagavatam. And also Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he wrote over 100 books and so many different. I mean, it's like, my God, like, what did he do? Where would we be without him? Over 100 books were told in half a dozen languages. Sanskrit, Bengali, Tamil, Persian, Hindi, English. It's not the work of a human. It's not possible for a human. It's simply not possible. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he amassed this great wealth, and he started, preaching within the existing society. He would give public lectures, the books, the articles, and so on, revealed the birthplace of Mahaprabhu, which had become lost, established a committee to care for that place. So he was working, and he was like preparing the ground, collecting the wealth, but he needed somebody like to really take this out, and to really like create a movement. He recognized, he felt he wasn't the right person for that. He was very much like working within society as a member of society, but he needed a revolutionary to really make a full scale revolution, to really manifest a living movement. And so we're told, he prayed to the Lord, please send one of your own person. And Gurudev, he liked so much this one verse in the end of this song. Thakur, what is it? How does it go? Thakur Bhaktivinod. Shri Gauranga Padisha Thakur Bhaktivinod Dina Hina Patitera Bandhu Anilena Abanite Toma Akalanka Purna Indu, saying that Gurudev quoted this so many times. He loved this verse, and because this Vaishnava, who wasn't even a part of the Gaudiya Math, from some other mission, it's that song Jaya Re Jaya Re Jaya, which is glorifying Saraswati Thakur. But in one of the last verses, he has a verse glorifying Bhaktivinod Thakur. And he could recognize Shri Gauranga Padisha, the Bhaktivinod is not an ordinary man, but he's a Parshad, eternal associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He brought you here. He brought you here. We are indebted to him because he brought you here. He gave you Prabhupada Saraswati Thakur to us. And like that. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur made this prayer, right? And Saraswati Thakur came as a response. And Saraswati Thakur was the one who who really brought everything together and created this movement. And then so that comparison is made with Vyasadeva, right? Vyasadeva, he had collected all this wealth, and then he finally had the fruit of everything, the condensed essence of everything in Srimad Bhagavatam. But he also recognized, I'm not the right person to really bring this out into the world. I need somebody else. And so Shukadev was the one who did that. What else to say? You want to say something, Kanzi?
Happy to hear. I always have a question, though. Maybe you can answer. Because I heard from Gurudev that whenever there is some discrepancy between Bhaktivinod Thakur and Saraswati Thakur, we follow Saraswati Thakur. What kind of discrepancy do you have? Some idea?
Well, I mean, for example, we hear that Bhaktivinoda Thakur burned his Brahmin thread. You know. Hang on, though. It just occurred to me that Bhaktivinoda Thakur wasn't a Brahmin. Huh. I heard that story that but anyway, he didn't wear Brahmin thread, you know. I mean, the thing is, right, I mean, there were many things, you know. Actually, what Saraswati Thakur did was, in one sense, you can say wrong. Wrong, but perfect. You know, why? Because Bhaktivinoda Saraswati Thakur, he was renovating Krishna consciousness for the modern age, right? So I mean, you know all these things, you know, so many things that he did, they're actually not, you know, they're not 100% in line with the idea of pure Vaishnavism, right? You know, he instituted the, you know, sannyasa ashram and all these things, but the idea of impure Vaishnavism is all these things are rejected, right? You don't need any special cloth, any special dress. You know, it is simply about a pure transaction of devotion with the Lord, right? So many of the things but this is the quality, the brilliance of a spiritual visionary, right? You know, knowing how to adjust Krishna consciousness to the modern age, right? You know, in the current circumstances, you know, how to connect with people, how to show the value of something in any given circumstance, right? This was the brilliance of Saraswati Thakur. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he would give that example of Napoleon, right? That, you know, Napoleon, when he was appointed general, then in the Austro-Hungarian war against France, then you know, originally France was losing. They appoint Napoleon. He has a new strategy, which is very different. And then the French side start to gain the upper hands, and then on the other side, the king is asking, you know, what happened? Oh, there's this new general, and he doesn't know how to fight properly. You know, like, okay, he doesn't know how to fight properly, but he's winning the war. So Saraswati Thakur, he was like that. You know, he was changing the rules, but he was winning. You know, and so yes, there are, you know, there are many different moods, right, in Krishna consciousness. You know, look at the example of Rupa and Sanatan, right? There are many examples. Rupa and Sanatan, well, practice is the wrong word, but they served, you know, they lived their life of bhajan in one particular way, right? Bhaktivinoda Thakur in another way, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji in another way, right? There are many different moods in Krishna consciousness. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has shown us how are we're children, we're babies, right? We don't have firm faith or firm conception of our own. So we need to follow some as you were kind of Priyatidi was mentioning the other day, right? That when we are undeveloped, then we need to follow some structure, some formula, right? Then when one's faith is developed and they have their own standing, right, then they can fly, right? But otherwise, we need to follow the recommendation of a higher soul, right? So Saraswati Thakur, he has shown us that, what is appropriate for us at this time, how we will practice. And he also mentioned, another thing that he mentioned is that that in terms of how we will apply Krishna consciousness in our own practicing lives, he said we won't look past Saraswati Thakur, because there are so many examples shown, right? But Saraswati Thakur is showing us how here and now. But in terms of specific examples, one example I've heard of, if we're talking about specifics, is out of the Brahmin thread, that Bhaktivinod Thakur rejected the Brahmin thread. But Saraswati Thakur instituted that because of the particular situation in society, right? Because he didn't want the Brahmins to think that they're more than the Vaishnavas, and he didn't want the Vaishnavas to think that they're less than the Brahmins, So then he's giving the Brahmin thread to non-Brahmin born Vaishnavas, right? And also what other thing we say? I'm thinking about a commentary in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Oh no, I think I'm mixing up, because another thing we've heard is I'm mixing it up, Kaviraj Goswami and Vrindavan Das Thakur, right? That if there's ever any discrepancy between Kaviraj Goswami and Vrindavan Das Thakur, then we follow Kaviraj Goswami. We've been told that also. So yeah, I think that's all that comes to mind. Bhaktivinod Thakur, he took Babaji, right, in his last days. And he withdrew, But Saraswati Thakur, he showed a very different example. He wouldn't tolerate that in his disciples, that type of mood. We were hearing the other day, or we were remembering the other day, the example of Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, right? And Krishnadas Babaji, he was actually pure Vaishnava. But he had some not some, but quite a strong inclination towards Nam Bhajan and Nirjan Bhajan, just taking the name in a solitary way. And he's actually doing that in an authentic way, but still Saraswati Thakur didn't accept that in him. And there's that occasion when he was in this jungle of Balihati, and when he was still a brahmachari, Swadhikananda brahmachari, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj was in a mat not too far from there at that time, and he heard that he was there, Krishnadas Babaji, and he sent a letter to Saraswati Thakur, saying, Swadhikananda brahmachari is here nearby, these stories, should I try and pull him in, engage him in the preaching and the active missionary activities? And Saraswati Thakur said, if you can do that, you will be his best friend. And I do not recognize sitting in the jungle of Balihati counting beads as Krishna Nushilanam. And it's an extraordinary thing, because we know he was a pure devotee. And Gurudev wrote pranam mantras for him. Our Gaudiya Gitanjali is dedicated to him. And we know Srila Sridhar Maharaj had so much love and regard for him. So he was a pure Vaishnava. But still, Saraswati Thakur, he has this particular mood, right? So we're following that, We're following that. It's very, very clear, right? It's very clear. And also another point is that another example that's coming to my remembrance is Bhaktivinoda Thakur was actually like, he wasn't like Saraswati Thakur established his institutionalized form of of practice, right? Which is actually quite different from the traditional Vedic model. You wouldn't have like organized centers where people in like a systematic way are studying the teachings. It wasn't like that. Like Suvasini Didi, she now this era of India is kind of coming to an end, but Suvasini Didi, maybe she was like the last generation who still witnessed that. Of course, it still goes on, but less and less. But she described like how she grew up, and they grew in this very pious town in South India, Tirunelveli, I think. And they had a main temple, but nobody lived in the temple. The temple is the deity, and there's a pujari who comes in, from outside to do arati and to worship, and the temple is about the deity. And then on special days, or maybe every day, they have some reading. I'm not sure, but it's all like in Sanskrit. It's not the general people, they don't understand, you know. And she remembers like going on festival days and they're reading from Sanskrit text, but they don't. Nobody understands. It's a religious, like pious way to live, but you're not really being given entrance into the inner heart of these things, or you're not really being given a chance to cultivate these things in a conscious way. Gurudev made this one interesting point. I think it's been published in Revealed Truth. Like 90% of the Vedic teachings are encouraging a mood of respect, something like that. Like just getting people to move away from like a base, mundane life of selfishness, right? Enter the whole Varnashram system is about that, right? Encouraging people to enter into this culture of reverence for something higher, for something beyond. And what exactly is beyond? We don't know. One of our devotees visited one of these some like big school in Varanasi, and and um and they were then they came to discuss like what is the final goal, and the Vedas are mostly pointing towards Brahman conception. It's all very vague and hazy, and this gentleman, he was like the head of this school, and and he said, and what happens afterwards, we don't know. It's a mystery, it's a question mark. There are many different types of impersonalism. Some of them are more innocent. So like the Shankaracharya school is more insidious because there's that arrogance there. That I am God. But many like the Brahmavadis, many of them, they're just like it's all a bit hazy. We don't really know what's after, what's beyond, right? So a lot of the Vedic culture and Vedic teachings are just encouraging this mood of reverence, and actually being given an invitation to enter into this like in a conscious way. That's wasn't really available actually. So what Saraswati Thakur did, where it's like in an organized and systematic way, persons are being given the opportunity to cultivate this in a conscious way. This is like something new. Of course, there would also be like gurus and their ashrams like scattered here and there, but not like this, where it's like in an organized way. It's like you have a brand, you have a package, and anybody has access, to come and plug into this. And of course, it has its downsides, which we don't need to go into. It has its pitfalls, as Saraswati Thakur was also very aware and also spoke about. But it's a very efficient way to share the teachings with the maximum number of persons, right? That's the idea. So everything is centralized, right? But Bhakti, so what am I saying? What is the point here in this context? Bhaktivinoda Thakur was against that. And he spoke about um, like having no centralization, and more like the grihasta, because that's another thing. Saraswati Thakur, he encouraged, sannyas, brahmachari, all these things, exclusive surrender. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur was more in the mode of like, um, like having like grihasta communities. I've heard about this. I haven't read this, but for Trivikram Maharaj and others, they've told. Maybe you've read also in the writings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He spoke about that, like not having any centralization, but you have like communities, grihasta communities, where persons get together and they share harikatha, kirtan, which is very beautiful actually, and you avoid many of the pitfalls of centralization institutions. And so like he had inspiration for another model of practicing Krishna consciousness. And who knows, maybe that's the way things will go in the future again. I don't know. Like sometimes I wonder that, like, this particular model, is it going to be able to continue? For we don't know how many people are going to continue to be inspired to give up everything and live in full time in centers. We're four people here right now. So I don't know. But anyway, that's another example, right? Different moods, different styles, but for now we're following Saraswati Thakur's direction, because it's the will of our Gurudev. What time is it now? Let's see, 8:45. Any other important things that should be? Oh, and maybe just one other thing I'd like to say, because it's kind of like our unique wealth, our guru's unique wealth, not ours, our guru's. Srila Srila Maharaj, he wrote this wonderful composition, right? This Bhaktivinod Viraha Dashakam, glorifying Bhaktivinod Thakur in a mood of separation. And it's actually quite extraordinary, because it was the first composition that Srila Sridhar Maharaj wrote after he joined the Gaudiya Math. But it's not about his guru, it's about his guru's guru. It was his clever strategy, right? He considered, that I really want to capture the heart of my Gurudev. But he was very intelligent, and he's considering, well, if I go to directly glorify him, that will only get so many points, And there had been some comment he heard of Saraswati Thakur, something like, if you really want to please someone, you have to find a way to truly touch their heart. Saraswati Thakur made some comment like that, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj heard that. And so he was thinking, oh, I want to really please my Gurudev, so I have to think, how can I really touch his heart in a deep way? And so then finally he had this inspiration. Oh, like, my Guru Maharaj, his everything is Bhaktivinod Thakur, everything. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he also mentioned that, he said that in the example of Saraswati Thakur, we saw how much earnestness it is possible to have for one's Guru. He had so much devotion for Bhaktivinod Thakur, and many of the names of the deities that he installed, he included this Vinod, there. And so much, his everything was Bhaktivinod Thakur. Paramadita, what is that line? Chiragoda Janashaya Vishwagurum Paramadita Bhaktivinoda. He was, of course, the perfect disciple of Gorkishore Das Babaji. And Gorkishore was very beloved to him. But in a deeper mood, in a deeper deeper in his heart. His everything was Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Everything. He saw Srimati Radharani, and there was this article that he published. What was it? Baba, you remember that? Baba Radha. Because he's actually the son of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, right? But he made this point, like, I'm not seeing him in that way as my father, but I'm seeing him as Radharani, the highest view that one may have of Guru. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he like hit upon this idea, like, oh, if I really want to capture my Gurudev's heart, then I must glorify Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his guru. So it's quite a curious thing. So then he wrote this extraordinary composition, and which is glorifying the gift of bhakti. There's one verse. There are a few verses in particular with which Gurudev really liked, and there's one saying like, so many great acharjas have come in this world. Ramanuja, Madhva Vaishnava charges, Madhvacharya, Ramanuja, and others, and they've all given so much. But what you have given is so much more, even than them. You've given the conception of Radha Krishna Vrindavan Leela. And then finally, maybe we can read a little. That verse is very nice. Very beautiful. No, we're a little late, but then finally the 8th verse. See the 8th verse. That verse in particular is very outstanding. It's describing, what is the ultimate gift of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Buddhi Dham, right? We were discussing that verse. Guru Dham, you've given Guru. Grantha Dham, given scripture. Gora Dhammadam, he gave Gora Dham. He revealed the birthplace of Mahaprabhu. Namadam, he gave the conception of the pure name. So many persons were chanting the name, but with what type of conception and with what type of practices? Then Bhakti Dham, he's given conception of pure devotion and shown the path for that. Then Buddhi Dham means he's given such an abundance, he's given so much. And it's explained in the commentary of that verse that this is referring to Radha Dasyam. This is the ultimate gift. And again, going back to the beginning point, that this is one of the things that is so special about Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He was cultivating the finest thing himself, but yet so broad and magnanimous in how he's bringing people in and inspiring and attracting people. So this is Shri Gauranumatam Sarupa Viditam Rupa Grajanadritam Rupa Jai Pariveshitam Raghu Ganera Shaditam Sevitam Jiva Dyera Virakshitam Shuka Shiva Brahmani Samanitam Shri Radha Pada Sevanamritam Aho Tadatam Isho Bhavan. Extraordinary verse of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. This verse is wonderful to glorify Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but it's also glorification of Srila Sridhar Maharaj because it's the most extraordinary verse. It is so brilliant and concise, and it's perfectly placing the connection of our Rupanuga Guru Varga in connection with the gift of Radha Dasyam that Mahaprabhu came to give. What was their relationship with that divine gift? Shri Gauranam, what Mahaprabhu came to give, Sarupa Viditam, what was known to Srup Damodar, what was adored by Sanatan, what was distributed by Rupa, what was tasted and enhanced by Raghunath and his group. Jiva Dyera Virakshitam, yesterday Jiva Goswami, protected, Rakak, right, Akshat, but was protected by Jiva Goswami. And, worshipped from afar, Shukadev, Shiva, Brahma, from a distance, they're honoring that. They cannot directly approach this thing. Shri Radha Pada Sevanamitam Aho, like, my God, like, wow. How wonderful it is. Tadatum Ishobhavan. You can give that. The nectar of the service of the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani. You can give that. So how great are you, Bhaktivinoda Thakur? The melted heart, we would hear Gurudev say that the melted heart of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So compassionate. The Vaishnavas are so compassionate. Like also Advaita Charja, seeing the condition of the society, bereft of not only just bereft. It's one thing to be bereft of, it's one thing to like just not have anything, but it's another thing to not have anything and to not even know what is worth having, right? It's like one of the saddest things that you see sometimes is people who've just given up, have no aspiration, right? They're living without any aspiration. It's one thing to be struggling, to be suffering, but with some higher ideal in life, right? That is still a worthy life. But it is another thing to be suffering and struggling with no cause, with no reason, and with no higher ideal, no higher aspiration in life, right? It is the most wretched condition to be in, to be suffering for no reason and no purpose, So Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Advaita Charge is seeing this, and praying to the Lord, please come, my Lord. I cannot bear to see the people suffering like this. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur also, giving everything to try to help the people, and then also praying to the Lord, please send somebody else to help me. So how magnanimous, how compassionate are their hearts. Okay, we won't go on too long. Does anyone else want to add anything? Jai Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki Jai. Tadiya Shubha Avirbhav Mahamahotsavatiti ki Jai. Okay, Jai Srila Gurudev. We'll end here.
I was just thinking once